here's the deal. We're doing a fall planting video, but I'm telling you right now, I think it's going to span multiple days because my energy, it's just not there today. The fatigue is real. We need to get these beds in the center cleared, and then we need to amend the soil, and then we need to plant it. And I think we're pretty much only going to get the beds cleared today, and then I'll come back tomorrow and do the next step. So basically what we're doing is we're preparing these to overwinter. I actually have some covers coming that are going to allow me to kind of turn these into mini greenhouses for the winter, and I'm going to do 2 of the beds this way. I could do all of them, but to be honest, I have the greenhouse going, I have the green stalks going. I just don't need that many things growing over the winter. Like, the greenhouse is going to be the main thing that we're growing in. This is just kind of like a little extra bonus to show you some different options. And while I think we definitely need to normalize ripping plants out because they're not serving us anymore, and that's something that I know is really hard for me. I know it's hard for other people, even though we're composting them. We're trying to kind of continue the cycle of life and let those nutrients return to the soil. It's still really hard. It's really hard to decide what to pull. And to be honest, I've been putting this off for about 2 weeks because I really don't want to do it. I don't want to rip the plants out. So I'm going to explain why I decided to rip out the center 2 beds. These front beds are still really productive. They have a lot of stuff going on that's going to continue to do well for the foreseeable future into October. There's a lot of eggplant in here. The nasturtiums are just bouncing back after the heat wave. The zinnias, oh my gosh, the zinnias, especially over here, are so pretty. I'm so glad that I did this. These are the California giant variety, so they get really tall. There's still so many eggplants getting ready to come up in here and maturing, and I also have some squash and some oregano. So these front beds are still like very alive in a way that's going to continue to be productive for a long time to come. There's even some beans in here that I really need to pick, actually. And a bunch of calendula. This just keeps blooming. I pick it every day, and there's more new ones every day. And then if we go around to the back beds, it's not necessarily that we're gonna have a ton more peppers come in before the first frost hits, especially since it's already been so cold over the last few weeks. But there's still a lot on here, and I want to leave it on here as long as possible so that I don't have to pick it all at once. Plus, the cosmos are just so gorgeous. And when I'm thinking about doing this from the content creator perspective, not just the gardener perspective, I also have to keep in mind what's going to look good. And having to film on these back beds for all winter, it's not going to look that good. Ideally, I would do it on the front beds because that will be easiest for me filming wise. But since there's so much on there that just there's no question it would do well, it leaves the center beds. And the center beds have a lot going on. But if you look more closely, 90% of it is just flowers. These sunflowers were so pretty for like a little while, and then they were just like, we're done. Like, they're putting off tinier and tinier blooms. The main stem is already done. We can harvest those for seeds. And that is really like taking up the entire center of this bed. There is a squash here. There's a Thai basil back here that we might just move somewhere else. These marigolds can stay. This squash never really took off, so I'm not too sad about losing it. And then I just had some more flowers in here because this was the bed that had brassicas in it. So once the brassicas were done, I just threw flowers in. And the flowers really I'm just kind of done with them. Like, they're not going to survive all winter, so they can go. This is a Gomphrena. And then we just obviously have some very crispy daisies in here. And this New Zealand spinach, which just keeps self-sowing itself no matter what I do. I'm really sick of it. It's so hard to harvest. In this bed, I also have Swiss chard. And this Swiss chard is the happiest Swiss chard I've ever had. I actually have picked it twice this week, so that's why it's looking a little bit barren right now. But the Swiss chard can overwinter. So we can leave that and we can pull out things like this portocala. We have some beans in here. They're not taking up a ton of room. We can work around them. These sunflowers, these ones for some reason are taking off after the ones over there, even though they were planted at the same time. So I may leave those and work around them because there's already stuff in here. Like there's some carrots. I might just do a bunch more carrots and lettuce around the sunflowers on this end for now, and then chop and drop the sunflowers. But other than that, we can make some gaps. We can make some gaps here, and we can make some gaps here so that we can start utilizing this space for fall and winter. I'm pretty much always just looking for the path of least resistance. And the way it played out, the middle beds are the path of least resistance while still functioning and serving me for my content creation stuff as well. The arches are not going to be in use over the winter. They'll stay up because the covers that I'm getting don't interfere with them, but there won't be anything growing on them. So what's here right now can kind of just stay. It's not a big deal. So my goal for today is to get the sunflowers and flowers ripped out of this bed. I'm hoping it's not going to be too difficult, but whenever I say that, it always ends up being harder than I think it's going to be. So let's just rip the band-aid off, I guess, because I'm dreading this. Ooh. Okay. All right. I'm glad that root ball is not super big. I thought we were going to end up losing a lot of soil from these sunflowers, but just a pretty small root ball. Pull this out, even though, look, it's making new babies. Ugh. I hate doing this. I'm gonna leave this one because it's on the end and it just started blooming, but this one's gotta go. This one had a bigger root ball. Oh my God. So this is like the Costa Made potting soil, which is so good, and I don't want to waste any of it. So I'll try to bang off as much of the soil as I can as I go, since I can't chop and drop these and leave them in the ground to decompose. Look at how loose and healthy that soil is. Take you out. This alone is making so much room in the bed. Wait till you see me pull back and show you what we've given ourselves to work with here. Okay, that was just the sunflowers that I pulled out, because I'm also pulling this one big plant and this is one big plant. So we're gonna have plenty of room to work with here. This I just grabbed from the clearance section at Lowe's, honestly. And I don't think it ever fully rooted. Yeah. All of that was the size of the root ball basically was already planted. These are the lentils. They are so pretty. I want to do so much more of these next year. I hope they have time at this point to mature. I did the math at the time and I was pretty sure I did have enough time, but we'll see. Come on. We got soil back. All right, and the stupid New Zealand spinach. Ugh, I don't even want to eat it. We're just gonna compost it. It keeps coming up. I planted it one time. Oh look, some kale. We'll leave that. Some calendula. I don't know. It's not exactly in the way, so we'll leave it for now. We didn't actually lose that much soil. Basil's not taking up too much room, and it's toward this end anyway, so I don't really care. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know why it looks like there's grass here. It's not chives. What is this? This is an Nemesia. Okay, this squash has no fruit on it, and there's no way it's gonna mature in time with what is on there. So even though it's a nice big plant, it's gotta go. It did add some nice greenery to the arch, so I'm kind of regretting that, but that's one bed done. This one's gonna be tough because these are so pretty and they just self-seeded from last year. I don't want to pull them. Where do you begin? There you are. Okay. This is such an interesting plant. It's related to purslane. It's supposed to be edible, but it doesn't taste very good. I'm gonna kind of let it sit at the edge of the compost and maybe it'll self-seed there. This is that variegated non-bolting basil. We have to leave that because that is like a very special plant that I can only get through propagation. So I'm probably gonna move it inside. These calendula really have a big root ball. You guys don't like share very well. We're not making as much progress in this bed, which I was expecting. That's okay because we can do it like a succession. So most of what we put in now will go in the first bed, and then in a couple weeks we'll come back through and do more in here. I don't want to let go of the sunflowers yet either, bud. Okay, that's I think everything that we can get pulled out of here right now. I get a lot of questions about these beds, and when I think of them, I love these beds. They're beautiful, they've lasted, they're holding up really well. It is a huge learning curve to grow vegetables in container gardens like this because they do not touch the ground, but they are the size of a conventional raised bed garden. So what happens with the soil is, especially when you plant intensively like I do, is it gets really root bound and compacted, especially on the surface, which can make it harder for it to absorb water because it has those sub-irrigated trays underneath. So it's bottom watering and the plants are getting everything they need, but the surface dries out really, really fast. And because it has to have potting soil in it, since it can't support the weight of conventional soil, what happens is I can't mulch it. I can't mulch it conventionally because then it's no longer potting soil, it's no longer lightweight. So I'm gonna be experimenting next year with some wool mulch and see if that's lightweight enough to not mess up the soil structure and the weight of it. For this season, what's happened is the soil on top is really compacted. So in areas where I haven't pulled out a huge amount of the plants, this top of the soil is not really conducive. So what I like to do every once in a while is just like run a rake through the soil at the top and blend in more fertilizer because again, it's contained and these are really hungry plants. I have to fertilize way more and way more often than you would in a garden that's connected to the ground and getting all those beneficial microbes from the soil itself, because there's no like organic matter in this except for what's in the potting soil. So I add a granular blend fertilizer to my soil very often. It's a slow release, it lasts a long time, but I need a lot of it because I'm growing vegetables. Particularly if you were just doing flowers, you wouldn't need quite as much, but vegetables are hungry plants. They're making us food, so they need food. If you're looking at this and you're thinking, I don't have gardens like this, but if you're planting a fall garden and you're resetting a bed, you have to amend the soil, like it needs food. If you're planting in a conventional bed, I would recommend just doing like 3 inches of compost, something like organic matter on the top of the surface, and you can kind of rake that in if you want. In our case, we're gonna be raking in some granular fertilizer and adding a little bit more soil just to top it off. This is what I've been using all summer in my garden. I make them send me 2 cases of this every spring now because I go through so much of it, but it really works. It really makes a big difference in the growth of the plant and their productivity, and I just go kind of nuts with it. Try not to disturb it too much. I knew that was gonna not make it. I measure with my heart with fertilizer. I know there's all sorts of instructions, but you got to keep in mind, like, the instructions are not based on this specific scenario, right? And I've talked to the people at Coast of Maine and they agreed with me that, like, you got to kind of adapt it to the situation, which is that this is very contained, very nutrient intensive, like it's requiring a lot of food. So we need to kind of modify the instructions a bit. I don't get to show this enough, but I love this little toolbox. You could put anything on the side of your bed, but it just makes it so much easier than having to run around looking for your tools all the time. Honestly, I could have probably done even more fertilizer, but since I know I'm adding more soil, fresh soil, I'm not as worried about it. I'm really just trying to get down about the depth of these, which is like 2.5, 3 inches. Doesn't need to be super deep. Once we water it, it will move further down. Oh, there's some roots. I don't know what that's from. I got like half a bag of potting mix here we can just throw on top. And then I think we'll need to take a break because my back's hurting. This is one of those situations where I really just want to get it done. But I know if I try to do it all at once and overextend myself, I won't get anything done tomorrow. So it's like this constant negotiation with myself of like, what can you accomplish and when? With the added complexity of filming it all. I I feel like it's a miracle I've made it this long filming these without having a day like this where I have to film and I'm really not feeling well. I think it's important that I normalize that because it's easy to kind of look at my videos. I post 2 videos a week and think like maybe she's not that sick. And I mean, that's just the reality of living with an invisible illness. Like, it's not visible a lot of the time. Especially with the endometriosis, what happens is there's 2 weeks every month where I literally just get less and less functional. I have brain fog, I have lower back pain that feels like my back is going to go out. I'm not sleeping because I'm tossing and turning all night. So yesterday I did what would have been like a normal amount of work for me, but I did not take into consideration like where I was in the month and the fact that it was also a Wednesday, which is the day where I take my arthritis medication. So even just lifting a couple of bags of soil and ripping those plants out of the ground and just being on my feet filming for a couple of hours, it sent me over the edge. So here's how we continue to garden even when we feel like absolute crap. I'm leaning pretty hard on my elevated bed right now and feeling very thankful that my plants are at this height for the most part. The beds that we're working in, I'll be able to sit down and do the work. Honestly, it comes down to like a lot of cutting corners, and also when I'm feeling this way, but like I want to be doing more and I know I will push myself too hard if I'm not careful, I will intentionally dress too pretty to do hard things. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but at the same time, I also know a lot of you have the same problem where you will overextend yourself. So if there's an opportunity for you to wear something that's too nice to get dirty in the garden, and maybe that helps keep you in check and keep you from doing too much, I say do it. Like, this is a comfy dress. My body is hurting, and the last thing that I need right now is to have my clothes making that worse. So I'm comfy, and I'm too pretty to make a big mess lugging heavy bags of soil around. So we're just gonna sit and we're gonna plant. This is one of those times I'm extra glad to have my little bucket of seeds already put together. This is everything I know I can grow in September and October, so I don't have to think about it. I just grab it and go. And normally I would be telling you to not push yourself the way I'm pushing myself today by doing anything at all and just have a rest day. And I am going to have a rest day. I just have to get this stuff planted because I've been putting it off and putting it off, and I know I'm just going to feel worse next week. So I have to get it done now, or the timing's just not going to work out for everything to mature before the first frost. But typically I would just say, like, just wait. Like, what's one more day to the plants? But I know there's a very good chance tomorrow will be worse than today. So in that case, I just kind of have to make the best of it and do what I can. But I definitely wouldn't be able to do it at all without this. It's so silly, but I literally will tell myself as I'm walking around, like, slow, just slow down, like, because I'll find myself like racing around toward like the next thing that I need to do, and it's totally like, it's not necessary. Like, I've created a life where I work for myself and I'm my own boss, and there's no reason for me to like grind right now. I can grind when I want to, when I'm able to, but right now I don't have to. It's my anxiety too. It makes me go faster and faster. So ideally I would put another bag of soil in here because it's about 1 inch below the surface of the bed at this point, but it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, so we have 1 inch less soil. I'm not growing anything that can't grow in a little bit less soil. I think it was lifting the bags of soil yesterday that really got me. I've been trying to think of a solution for months to the problem of moving soil around, because like I've come up with all sorts of adaptable tools that we talked about before for pretty much every other aspect of gardening. Moving soil around, I can't figure it out. I'm not gonna do any cabbage. I'm not gonna do any pumpkins. I still those broccoli starts, and to be honest, I'm like debating even putting them in at this point because they take up so much room, and I keep buying broccoli and regretting it. I don't know. I could do, because most of these are in the brassica family and need to be sowed at a very similar depth, just chaos, so that would be the easiest path of least resistance. And then looking at like my sorrel and my scallions, they also get sown at about 1/4 inch deep. And carrots I can just do on the surface. This is that pack I mixed all my carrots together in. The beets need to go a little deeper. Oh, it's in my eyes. Okay. Can you just, you're a little bit in the way. Can you go, just tuck that way a little bit. So since the other bed still has a lot of stuff in it, I'm gonna prioritize putting smaller things in there, like some kind of lettuce mixes maybe. But in this bed where I want things to be able to get more like full size, I'm gonna prioritize different things. So what do we have? Sky choy is so pretty. I think it gets pretty big too. The thing that stresses me out about chaos gardening is like I don't know where I've already put something. So I feel like I'm gonna work in like blocks. Like I'm just gonna do like 1/4 of the bed at a time and like end it right there. I already have my snap peas coming up here. And those will go pretty late into the season. Once the flowers have started to turn into the seed pods, it's the flowers that can't survive the cold. Okay, I've got some gai choy. Oops. Oh, that was quite a lot. There is something very freeing and empowering about just chaos sowing, like, and trusting the process of nature to do the work. I'm gonna do some beets in here. Don't even know if I like these. We're gonna find out. These are 65 degrees. These are supposed to be a little deeper. We'll see what happens. Try to get it in like these pockets. I'm gonna do a few of these Violetta pak choi that we did in the green stock as well. Too many. Always too many. Just being out here is like lifting my spirits. The bumblebees all around me. Hi. Give it a very light raking. Try to get some soil coverage. Okay, next section. Got these little petunias on clearance and just threw them in a month or so ago. I don't have any petunias in the garden, which is kind of funny because actually my first had 2. These are supposed to be petunia flowers for my first dog after she passed away, and this one's not the happiest because it was a clearance plant, but the rest of them have bounced back pretty well. So I'm keeping all the seeds that I've already done in each block, like I'm moving them into this side so I don't replicate them in the next section. And this is my mix of carrots. I'm just gonna do like probably a teaspoonful of carrots. This feels very witchy, magical, like grow babies, grow. There's already some kale in here, so I'm not gonna do any of these kales. Kind of just like a process of elimination, so I don't really have to make an actual decision. Since we've already got carrots for root crops in here, I'll do radish in the next section. We've really already got a lot of Swiss chard too. How about long white scallion? This is a more mild scallion. I gotta have some onion flavor for the winter. Like a half teaspoon. I am so excited for this now. Like we're going from this empty plot of dirt back to green life. We usually only get to do that in the spring. But if you start growing in the fall and winter too, which is so underrated, I truly don't know why more people don't do it. And you get to enjoy it way longer. Mosh, which is that one that they think came from the Rapunzel story, the plant that the husband stole for his pregnant wife from the witch, is really delicious, and it's a very small plant. So even though we've already got a good amount of stuff in this section, I'm not too worried about it taking over. I'm actually inadvertently working in thirds here. We've got a third of the bed and we're planting 3 different varieties in each third. This might have been too much. They're really small though, so I'm not worried about it. Give that a little rake. These beds really do come in handy. I just could not do this at all if I was in ground right now. I'm not taking that for granted. There were times when my arthritis was really bad and I didn't have these beds where I literally was crying. I was so frustrated that I couldn't do what I loved and I didn't see a way that I could do it. And that is a big part of what keeps me going here, even on days like this, because I know there's other people watching this that are going through the same thing and feeling hopeless, and I want to demonstrate how you can still keep growing. We'll do our arugula in the next bed. So what will be our last three? Giant winter spinach, radishes. Radishes are 28, giant spinach is 45, this is 75 for endive. We'll definitely do multiple rows, successions of radishes. Oh, my brain. Okay. You do a little bit more than you need with this method because not everything will come up. Spinach really should be about 1/2 inch deep. It's a bigger seed. Oh, I'm gonna have to find a way to get some more soil out here. I might just have a little bucket of it somewhere I can grab that will be more lightweight. Radishes, I don't want to do too many radishes at once because they'll all be ready at once and I won't know what to do with them. Happens every time. Okay, so that's our little recipe for this third. I do feel like I should get some more soil on here. I know I'm flip-flopping. I have all these ideas. I think it's gonna be fine one way, and then I start doing it and I'm like, well, what if it doesn't work? And this is your only chance to get these things growing in here. Like, gotta do it right. I forgot that Jeff was helping me fill these nursery pots for the greenhouse. And we had a bunch of them sitting on the driveway ready to come down here. So it's way less than a full bag weighs, and it's not even wet, so it's pretty light. Oh, I'm so glad. I actually feel like I should keep some of these around just in case of emergency like this. So now I can just give everything a little sprinkle. Little blanket of dirt. I just went in the greenhouse for this and completely forgot what I was doing for like a full 30 seconds, like no clue. Also, sorry if you can hear the beeping. I'm not sure, there's just massive construction happening at all times. You can see, like I was saying, this top of the soil in this bed got really densely compacted. It's loose underneath, but the surface is hydrophobic and trying to get seeds to germinate. That is not good. It's funny. I've never seen Swiss chard do this quite so much. It's related to beets, so I feel like that's why the root gets like this, but now it's getting like new baby leaf growths on that part of it. This squash, is this a squash? Yeah, this is a butternut. I meant for it to trail down the side of the bed, but then the cucumbers died and I was like, I have nothing on this arch, so I trained it up the arch. But it's in such a weird position because it like goes like probably 3 feet before it actually reaches the arch. I don't even know if this tinfoil stuff did anything. Especially on a butternut, if that's the only one that survived the squash vine borer, I really don't believe it was the tinfoil. I think it was just the fact that it's a butternut and the vine itself is too narrow for the squash vine borer. This really is the best time of year. If it was hotter, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. And the sun stays so low, so late in the day now, covered by that tree line, that I get to work in the shade quite often. It's another one of those broccolis from the spring. You know, and then you just, everything just gets chucked everywhere. Someone picked up those sunflowers I threw on the ground yesterday. Because then I was like, oh, I need to save the seeds and maybe I can do something with the stalks even though they're really short. What is this? Oh, there's like old basil in here. That's not looking too hot. No fancy camera angles for you today. You're in the garden bed. This is a type of mustard called dragon tongue. It's supposed to be vibrant green with purple veins and white midribs. This is sorrel. Sorrel has an amazing lemony flavor. We'll do our dragon tongue. One thing I really don't like about the territorial seed packets is they put the same design on every one of them. So I can't just, as a person with brain fog and fatigue, it's extra difficult for me when I have to read things. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it is. It's harder for me to just grab and go what I need when everything just looks the same. Like, okay, what are you? I don't know. We're gonna do some arugula. This is that speedy arugula. I don't know where my Astro is. I thought I had more of it from last year. I have to go back through my seed binder. I think some stuff got left out. I'll put this back here. Because this is where I've got these sunflowers that are still just going off. But once they're done, we want to have something else going in here. Butter crunch or chef's medley. I don't know what this is. This actually looks like the row 7 lettuce. It's got kind of that pinkish tinge. We'll just do a chef's medley. We don't have any root crops. What should we do? More carrots? I think we'll just do more carrots. A moment for the retractable hose reel. Saving me yet again. This thing's like 100 feet long. At this point in the garden, it's not about being productive. It's just about getting out here. It's not about being exciting. It's literally just about getting out here. I'm outside, I'm gently moving my body. Maybe I'll get 3 pieces of lettuce and a beet. It doesn't really matter, because that's not the point. That may not have been the most exciting fall planting video that you're gonna watch this fall, but I hope it was realistic. I hope it maybe felt empowering to see somebody do stuff when it's hard. I don't know. But as always, thank you so much for gardening with me, and happy growing.